Good evening. I'm Lou Goldstein, and welcome to another edition of Focus On. Tonight we'll be talking about public relations and digital marketing, and our guest tonight is Amy Towery, who is a freelance consultant, and she partners with small businesses to support their unique communication needs, and she probably could help you too if you're looking for a good PR person. But first, Amy, welcome to the show. It's great having you here. I know you're very busy, and thank you for taking some of the time out of your day to come here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Lou. Thanks.
It's great. As I said before, Amy is a freelance consultant, and she has experience working in all aspects of public relations, corporate, agency, startup, and now as a consultant, works for herself for various companies. And if you want to reach her, all you got to do is just look at Amy Towery, it's Towery, and just go to LinkedIn, and you'll see her, and you can contact her through LinkedIn. So we want to talk a little bit about public relations tonight. And it's a lot of people are interested in the field because a lot of times people, they're very busy, and they need to communicate and they need to get word about their business, out to folks.
Right.
And it's important to have somebody who specializes in that and knows how to really attract the audience involved in that. And I know it's a lot of things that you specialize in. But first, let's talk a little bit about you. Let's talk a little about your background. Sure. You went to college in South Carolina. We talked a little bit about that.
Yep.
You specialized, in public relations. But how did you decide to start your own business, and when did you start to do that?
Yeah, that's right. I started in this track in college, and a lot of people don't fall into their career, right? So I was one of the few that did follow that. I started very quickly going into a corporate communications department, working for a huge healthcare system in South Carolina. So I was in-house. I learned that element of being, part of the corporate structure. And then I went up to New York and worked for one of the huge agencies doing public relations work for some of the big corporations in the U.S., so pharma or some of the big advertisers, some of the big product marketers. And then, I took some time off and had kids, and then kind of reconfigured it all. I was on this this one path, and then I took 10 years off, and then went back I went to a startup and worked part-time when my kids were young, and it was great. I had kind of got my toe back in the water, and I learned this whole new digital marketing component, which I had been really out of, I had missed that wave. So I had someone who was really gracious to teach me, how to build a website, how to code on a simple level. Right. And then that led us up to COVID, and like so many people, right? It's like life shuffled again, and I kind of was on my heels. Not to get too personal, I was coming off of a divorce, and I now had COVID, and my job was at stake, and I didn't know what to do. I have children, and you just kind of figure it out. And I had some advice from a good friend who I'll never forget. She essentially told me, just get started, figure something out, and it kind of led me to starting a business.
That's great. Well, I know a lot of times networking really helps. As a consultant, and we're talking about people working from home and kind of isolating there for a long time. How were you able to network and get your business started?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was for me. I was a little panicked, and I didn't do anything at first until this friend told me. We were on a telephone call when everyone was doing those like group Zoom meetings at the beginning, and she knew I was in this kind of unusual spot, and she said, she's like this very successful, entrepreneurial, smart woman, and she said, Amy, have you ever thought about starting a business? And I said, yeah, I've always kind of had this idea, like, I'd love to be in a business, but I don't know what I would do. Like, what is the business? And she's like, there is no idea. She's like, just get started on something. And I was like, it kind of annoyed me. And I thought about it for a few days. And I finally kind of just figured out what she meant. She's like, you have a skill set. Just get started. Just start reaching out. And it did. I made all these friends and contacts over the years. So I just started reaching out to some friends, and it led me to my first opportunity. Yeah.
So what was your first opportunity?
So one of the very first calls, surprisingly, I happened upon a woman who owns a business, and she was pivoting her business at that time. Okay. And she said, I saw your LinkedIn, and I saw your experience. I could really use someone like you if we could get a little creative with time and hours and all of that. And I was like, absolutely. I just wanted to get busy again. So that was kind of the first thing. And I think that's it. It's like I just wanted to start working again, and I would take anything. And that's what led me to one piece of work. Then she introduced me to someone else who needed a little bit of work. And finally it started building to the point where I was like, wow, I'm like sustaining here. And then even, maybe a year and a half into it, 2 years, I kind of was at this moment where I said, okay, I think I can take on even more business. And I did. And so it's like, then you're fully up and running. And it's like, wow, I can't believe I did this. Kind of unexpected.
Yeah, she was right. The skill set was there.
Yeah, it was there.
Yeah.
It's like, just get started on something. Like, I think we all doubt or just don't know what the idea is. And you think, oh, I'm going to start a store, or I'm going to start some brilliant tech company. I don't know. No, it's like I just had to do what I knew how to do already. And that was public relations and marketing. So. Well,
it's the old saying, it's like what writers write what they know about, right?
Yeah.
So if your experience has been in public relations, I'm sure it served a great help.
Yeah.
Falling back on that. But I think a lot of times when you want to start a business, one of the first things you think of is, besides fear of failure, is how do I get started, as you said, and developing a business plan.
Right.
So did you develop a business plan to get started, or
no?
You just winged it.
And honestly, I think if COVID hadn't happened and the opportunity hadn't come up the way it did, I never would have started a business because of that. I would have been like, well, you need a business plan. You have to be, so organized and have all this. And of course, I'm in a freelancing, consultant type. So that's a little bit different, where you can kind of start on your own. And I'm not building some huge business, but no, I think that would have frozen me in my tracks. So the fact that I just jumped in 100% was the best way for me to do it.
That's good. Now, as far as attracting clients, what type of clients do you have now?
I haven't. It's interesting. I started my career in healthcare and pharma, and I've gone back there. So I had a gap in between where I was doing some menswear, fashion. I tried a couple different things. But that during the menswear, I was learning the tech. So now I have the combination of healthcare and technology. So one of my clients works in data analytics for the pharmaceutical industry, so a very techie space. I have another client who does, she's in education, she's an executive function coach and does amazing things with young children and helps teens who are struggling, with different pieces of their growth. I build websites for people and have done, commercial real estate and all different kinds of things. I have a friend who has a running company, made a website for him, so a little bit of everything.
Well, I think it's, the diversity of your clients speaks of itself. But I think one of the things I read a couple weeks ago in the paper is how certain college majors, especially English majors who can write, are being attracted into a writing field, from various corporations, whether it be NASA, whether it be ETS, and various companies like English majors. But why is it important, though, for companies or businesses to pay attention to public relations? A lot of times, the company thinks, "Oh, we can do it ourselves," and they find out we can't.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes if you have a small enough company or a big enough company, right? If you can dedicate a whole team to it, but it's a challenge.
Especially from a mom and pop business.
Right. A mom and pop, it's a little hard because it's intimidating, right? Like most people don't even know what public relations is. Is it marketing? How does it fit into all of that? And public relations really is kind of like protecting your brand, right? Like, what do you want someone to feel about your company or your brand, and how can you use messaging to make those emotions come through and that brand feel come through. So in traditional public relations, we're using, we're working with the press to get stories placed into that writers are writing about. It's not paid. Public relations is not a paid sport.
Right.
So there's an authenticity element to good public relations. But yeah, it's important just because you want to, even from social media, it seems like, social media is this small thing and it's easy. It's important. It's like, that's one of the most outward facing pieces of your business if you have a social media account for your company. People see it. So you got to put some time and effort into it. You can't just throw things up there and make it look, sloppy. You have to think it through, and how does that filter into the rest of your plan for your business? So, there's a lot to consider there. And so,
Right.
if you don't have somebody to do it for you in your company, you probably should invest in them.
Okay. I know there are various examples of public relations campaigns, and I know one of the goals of public relations is to influence. You
Yeah.
know, right? So in a way, you are an influencer in a
Right.
subset of PR. But I know there's different types of campaigns that you've probably done yourself.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could just tell the audience a little bit about some examples
Sure.
about PR campaigns.
Sure. When I worked I didn't work on this account, but a lot of people will know it. But when I worked at one of the big agencies, there was the Wear Red for heart disease. It's like women's red dress campaign. That was a very public facing. I think it's during February, so it's like Women's Heart Awareness Month. There are big campaigns like that have been around for 15, 20 years, and people recognize it. And it's like, oh, that started as a PR campaign,
Right.
to try and pass on disease awareness to people and help people understand. Go to your doctor. I worked on so many funny and fun campaigns. I was just kind of reminiscing recently about celebrity. Back in the mid 90s, there were a lot of celebrity campaigns involved in healthcare, and we took a celebrity, and you'd go on these media tours and travel all around the country and take them. This is when things were different back then. So you'd have to take the celebrity to the studio in LA and New York and Miami and go in and have a sit-down live interview. And we did all of those for osteoporosis, and you'd have a legend. We had a legendary famous actress. Campaigns can be as big as that and as small as like a social media campaign where you're like, okay, this summer we're going to do a huge event at my company, and in June we're going to do something, July and August. It can be so small all the way up to something national.
Right. It depends on the budget, right?
Absolutely.
If you have money to spend, right? It can be big. So I know there's a lot of parts of your job that are challenging, and a lot of parts that are overly exhausting too, I'm sure. But what is your favorite part of your job right now? Yeah.
I'm a taskmaster, so I do love getting things out the door. Maybe PR people all love that. I have one client who she and I, anytime we're about to hit send on something big, we get on the phone together, or we're on a Teams Zoom call, and we'll count it down, 3, 2, 1, send. So I don't know, maybe that's my favorite part, is when you've done all the work and now you're about to send your campaign out and let the world react to it. That's exciting. I like that a lot. Yeah.
It's gratifying.
It's super gratifying. And nowadays, everything is so measurable.
Right.
That makes it really, you can count web hits, you can count impressions. Where we used to, we would do press, I forget what we call them, column inches, I think we called them, of how much press was, column inches in the newspaper of your story got covered. Now it's a lot easier to measure success.
So what are your 3 kids, Cam and Charlotte and Mason?
Yep.
What do they think of mom being mom and also mom running a business as a consultant and balancing the act between the two?
I think I'm sure it has pros and cons. I think they like the fact that I'm always home, and because I work in the home office, and they know I have a set of doors that they know when those doors are closed, that most of the time they listen and don't come in. And they're getting older now, so they're pretty great about that. But yeah, it's good. It allows me to pick the kids up at school when I have to, and zip back in 10 minutes and be back for a call. It makes it easy. The downside, I guess, is during COVID, that was extremely challenging, because I'd be getting notices from the school that my son was asleep on the couch during class, and he fell asleep, and I should wake him up, and I was on a call, and so that was that was extremely stressful and challenging. But we made it through.
Made it through, right? Just like everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people who want to start a business, especially a small business, as you said, sometimes they have trouble, getting going because they really haven't really thought it through all the way. So maybe for anybody who's actually watching right now and thinking about starting a small business, the pros and cons, what's the hardest part of starting a small business?
Yeah, I think for me it was like the self-doubt, maybe, where you think, I don't know if I can do this, or it all seems so big at the beginning, like how will I approach this mountain? And I think if you just start one little thing at a time, like one day at a time. And what helped me a lot too was just having someone who understood that and can be a mentor for you, someone I have a good friend who's helped me through a lot of this, and she's always saying this: these are the highs and lows, highs and lows. Like, you're going to have days where you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this great, it's going so well, and then you're going to crash, and that's totally normal. And she said that, you know, the people, what's the measure there is just like, if you can just ride it out, like that is usually where you can find some success, if you can handle those extreme ups and downs. You know, if you can kind of stick it out and be smart and work hard, right? There's a lot of hard work involved in all this stuff.
It is, and it also leads to sort of like a journalism question too, because all journalists have deadlines, right? And you have internal, you know, external clients who all want their, you know, their project being taken care of, I'm sure, as your number one priority, right? So how do you balance the various, you know, projects that you've been assigned to and working on, and how do you get time management under your belt while you're, you know, prioritizing these projects? Yeah,
it's hard when you're a single practitioner, because if you commit to a deadline, like there's the buck stops here, right? So you have to get it done. So I do tend to, if I'm strapped for time, I will wake up at 5 in the morning, and I work well in the morning. I know that's like where my strength area is, so I'd rather get up super early, pour a cup of coffee, and just crank on something. But it is hard. I've gotten better at mapping out the timelines. I do have some quick hit timelines that, you know, things that come up during the day that you need to address, but then I also have writing deadlines. Like you're saying, there's a huge need for writing right now, so I have a lot of long form writing that I'm doing. And those articles can take 2 weeks to work on. And so you're just working towards a deadline. I just do my best. You know, I try to be thoughtful, and if I know if I'm short on something, I address it immediately with the client. If I know I'm going to miss a deadline, or if I'm sensing I'm going to miss something, I'll call them right away and talk to them. I won't wait till the deadline comes and be like, oh, sorry to make it. So I just try to be really on top of things. And of course, everything. I miss things sometimes. Everybody does. Like, we're all human, and you know, I'll miss a call, or I'll be late to a call. You know, it happens. But yeah, I do manage to stay on top of it all pretty well somehow.
Well, it's not easy. I'm sure it's a lot of juggling to do.
Yeah,
I'm sure sometimes you know, deadlines have to be, you know, are always moving. You know.
Yeah, and I tend to be. Yeah, I tend to like say, oh, I want to do that, and very eager. And I've learned to control that urge to say, like, oh, I can have it for you. I'm so excited. I can have it for you in 3 days. Like, no, I need 3 weeks to do that project properly and think of all the other things I have going on.
Self-control.
Yeah. I've tried.
You know you can do it, but
Right.
Yeah. But I think everybody, you know, a lot of people have thought about, you know, starting businesses like your own, and starting a small business like your own. You know, what advice would you give them?
Yeah. I guess I would think that, you know, we're adaptable, right? First of all, I've learned that in the last few years. Like, you can adapt. I think even going through a hard time or being stuck somewhere, like, you can find your way out of it. And so I think it's just start acting, right? Like, start doing something and give it a try. I don't know. 5 years ago, if you told me I would have had a little business and work for myself, I would not have believed it. And whether it's successful or not, down 5 more years, we'll see. Who knows? Hopefully so. It looks like it's going that way. But I think just, like I said, having a good mentor, some people around you who can support you, and you know, just hang in there and go for it.
Who's been your mentor? Who's been your mentor as you've gone through your career?
Through my career, most recently, one of my clients, her name is Donna. Yeah.
Okay.
She's been a wonderful mentor to me. My friend who gave me that wonderful advice is a friend I know through, I do a lot of horse riding in my life. It's a big part of my life. And a good friend of mine named Ashley, who we ride horses together, she was the one who just was like, don't sit around and feel sorry for yourself, just get moving and get going. So I've been very fortunate, and what's interesting is it's a lot of women that have helped me throughout. My mother is an extraordinarily great role model. She's been working, and she's in her mid-70s and works full-time every day as an attorney. She's amazing role model. So I've had some great, you know, great people to look up to, and I've been very lucky in that regard. Yeah, it's important. Cool. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about role models in your life, but you mentioned your mom.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's she's a New Jersey classic. She's an attorney in New Jersey, but yeah, she's strong. She went through when she was young. She went through law school. When I can remember her graduating the bar when I was in 4th grade.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, she pivoted her career. So maybe somehow that was instilled in me in a way that I don't even realize. But yeah, she became an attorney when I was a kid, and my brother was young too. And she would drive into I think Lower Manhattan to go to New York Law School.
Wow.
And then she'd race home to pick us up from school. So she was doing the same thing back in the 80s, I guess. She was doing all that. So yeah, she was a great role model and still is. And she's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I remember when my mom went back to school when she was 68, you know, she graduated William Parsons College. And my dad always kidded me that she had a much better GPA than me. You know?
Did she?
She did.
She did.
Yeah, it didn't take much, you know. But the fact of you know, living your life, raising your kids, and then doing something that you want to do,
Yeah.
you know, I think is really important. And I think, you know, you have to have a little bit of confidence to do it. That you got to at least try,
Yeah.
right? Because if you don't try, you'll never know. So I think the fact that you went back and said, you know what, let me give it a try.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's great. And obviously, you know, you have your clients now, and you're building your practice, and just like everything else, it takes time. But certainly, the fact that these clients are sticking with you, you know,
Yeah. I'm very
reflects
lucky.
upon, you know, the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
So for students who are watching right
Yeah.
now, thinking back to your student days,
Yeah.
you know, when you majored in public relations, what advice would you give students who are graduating college right now, watching
Yeah.
the show and saying, you know, is there a role for me? Should I,
Right.
you know, how do I get started? You know, how do I start my career in public relations and
Right.
marketing and digital marketing? You know?
Yeah. I would say take an internship. And I wasn't one of these kids, I don't want to make it like I was some kid that was a star. And, you know, I kind of picked my spots, and I think that's important, right? When I was young in college, we went on a tour of the Atlanta Olympics were happening. And we went on a tour, and I somehow got the name of the person who gave us a tour. He was like a professional of the communications department, professional man.
Right.
And I wrote him a note, and I said, I'd love to come down and be an intern, because I think I had heard him mention it. And a woman called me and said, oh, he's no longer here, but I'm taking over the role. I'd love to have you. Like, you know, if you just take little chances like that. And I went down and had this amazing internship in the Atlanta Summer Olympics. And it was like, it was an amazing opportunity.
That's great.
Yeah, that I would have never happened had I not like written that little note. And so I don't know, for me it was like little things like that. Moving to the city, and you know, I kind of had a friend who had a connection, and I called that person and asked, you know, you ask for a little bit of help here and there. And I think that can go so far. I wasn't like I was always the most confident in all these things, but like you pick your spots, and
Sure.
and you don't have to know it all. I always tell my kids that, like, when I was young, I felt like, okay, now I'm an adult, I need to understand this whole career, and you don't. Like, you're a kid and you're young coming out of college, there's an expectation of like what's age appropriate, you know, and
Right.
find somebody to help teach you, like find a good role model to kind of show you more. And then when you're done with your work, ask for more, right? Like,
asking
keep
questions,
asking
right? Yeah.
more.
And
So-
keep networking too. I guess that's important too.
Yeah, because I think kids are lucky now too, because they're building, as soon as you come out of college, you already have these social networks starting, and like we didn't have LinkedIn or any of these connections. So, you know, when they're young, they build up those social networks, especially on the professional side, like your LinkedIn profile, and maintain them and like keep those relationships, because someone you meet when you're 25, it's funny how they come back around, you know, later, and it's interesting. It's like, especially when you work in the same city, or, you know,
Right.
it's pretty cool. And so if you have really nice relationships, those people can help you later, and you can reconnect in different ways and work together again. It's fun. It's kind of like synergy, right? It all comes back around. So
It is, and it goes in circles.
Yeah, it does.
It does. You see a lot of the same people. You
Yeah.
know? And it's good to keep connected over the time
Yeah, I
period.
agree.
So what, you know, over the next couple of years, you know, we don't want to say what you're going to be doing 5 years or 10 years
Yeah.
or anything like that, but what's your vision going forward, you know, for Amy Towery, you know, public relations and digital marketing, you know, freelance consultant.
Yeah.
For the next couple of years, what's your vision as far as, you know, expanding the role or, you know, attracting clients? What do you see yourself doing, you know, in the future?
yeah, I think I'm getting to a point where I can just start vision, like, and maybe that's important for me. I have to start thinking about it, start seeing it.
Yeah.
I feel like I could start seeing, can I bring on an employee? Can I bring on 2 employees? Like, there's a lot of work out there, and if you could bring someone on who could really add value, like social media people, right? Like, they're critical to the importance of an organization. Like, every client needs that.
Why is that? Why does every client need that?
Just because you can't really get away with not having a social presence. I mean, I don't know too many like companies that you could have that don't need social, right?
Because everybody's looking at social media.
That's where you're going to tap into an audience, whether you own a painting company or a professional company, a tech company. Your audience is out there, and so you need to be communicating to them. And so social is really an important part, but like I said, it takes a lot of time. So you have all these different platforms. You need to be well versed on all of them and stay up and know how to do some basic graphic design, right? Keep it looking good and have some writing capability so it sounds smart. That's important. So social people who like social media and are good at it, they're valuable. But then it goes everything. You have a website now. You have blogs, articles that you have to write. You have to write great content on your website. There's a lot. We're like a very content-driven society right now. We were chatting before the interview started, but why is there such a need for writers? It's because it's not just the New York Times and the local daily newspaper anymore. There's a blog for everything. If you're a sports fan, you can read endlessly on sports blogs everywhere, and there's someone needs to write all that content. And so good writing, that's another skill I would be interested in. If there are people out there that can help with that. But I don't know, maybe that's it. Can I grow this into something bigger than myself? That's the question over the next few years.
Well, I'm sure there'll be an answer for it, and I'm sure it'll show itself. Yeah. And I'm sure it'll grow.
Yeah.
It just takes some time. The fact that you grew it in such a short time to where it is now, speaks volumes about what you can achieve in the future. So. I just thank you very much for coming on today.
Yeah.
It was great talking, and hopefully everybody at home who's been watching, Amy, if you want to get a hold of her, contact her. Just look at Amy Towery, Towery. She's on LinkedIn, and she'll respond to you. Whatever your questions are, or you're interested in, contracting her for your unique communication needs. I'm sure she'll be there for you. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, Lou.
It was great having you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good couple days and enjoy it while you can. And for everybody else out there, so stay healthy, stay active, stay positive, and I'll see you next week on another edition of Focus On. I'm Lou Goldstein. Have a good night.
Every day.